Hello, and welcome to Bruce World, How I See Things. If you haven't guessed it, I'm Bruce Handler. And with each episode, I plan to discuss a thought-provoking topic and, of course, share my point of view. To talk about humans and the interesting things we do, maybe teach you a thing or two, share some facts that are really true, and make you laugh at least once before I'm through. Hello, and welcome to episode 10 of my podcast titled Looks Can Kill, The Growing Obsession with Body Image. Why are we so anti-body, and how to address it? So this is going to be my very first podcast where there is little to laugh about, where I won't be using puns, satire, sarcasm, punchlines, or silly sound effects. Why is that? Because this is a very serious subject, and I want to have a serious conversation about it. So why am I covering this topic, and why now? And what do I hope to achieve by discussing this with you? Well, as we know in life, sometimes things just seem to align at the same time. Now, I came across this article about body image, not a topic that would usually catch my attention, but the first page had a unique-looking graphic with numbers that actually made my jaw drop. I had to do a double take and read the numbers again. Now, the brief data on the first page was absolutely shocking. And then what happens? Within a week of reading that article, I heard about two different families with daughters that were struggling with significant body image issues, the types of issues that can inflict havoc on a family and the lives of the children going through these challenges, including having thoughts of suicide. Hence, part of my podcast title being Looks Can Kill. Or to clarify, I should say our perception of our looks can sadly make some people feel worthless and that life is not worth living. Now, many of us will occasionally hear about people with bulimia or anorexia, and we hear about kids picking on other kids because they're overweight or they look different. Teens who think they are fat or ugly when they're rail thin and actually the prettiest girl in their class. But when you go back in time and compare the past to current times, this obsession, this preoccupation with body image today is truly reaching epidemic proportions, and I don't use that word lightly. And in particular, it's affecting females the most. From girls as young as 3 years old to elderly women in their 80s. When I stated 3 years old, you heard me correctly. That is not a mistake. In fact, multiple studies have shown 3-year-olds can literally start forming opinions about their bodies. I mean, is that not mind-boggling? Now, body image has been defined in various ways, but essentially it has to do with how we see our bodies and what we believe others see when they look at us. And it's not just our bodies in the traditional sense, it's also every facial feature. Our hair, our skin. Do we have freckles? The length of our fingers, our ears, the shape of our cheekbones, if we have wrinkles, and on. And on. And sadly, so many girls and women have body image issues and think about it and let it affect their lives on a daily, if not hourly, basis. And again, not only do people think about it, but sometimes it takes over their lives because nothing is more important to them. And what effects are we talking about if we have a poor body image? And it is quite a list. We're talking about low self-esteem, lack of confidence, depression, extreme anxiety and emotional swings, anger issues, early sexual activity, poor relationships, substance abuse, and then obviously eating disorders that can be life-threatening because they can lead to severe obesity or starvation or a variety of other health issues. And worst of all, they can lead to suicidal thoughts and actions. Most sadly are when you have people who think they can't go on living all because of their body image and the way they think they look. Now, before I share some mind-boggling statistics that should freak you out, I want to get back to what I hope to accomplish after you listen to my podcast. My only hope is that you will pass on to at least one person some of the information I've shared with you today. Or maybe start a conversation with friends or a group of family members. Or ask people to listen to my podcast and ask them to pass the message along. Because without this type of information getting around, and it needs to get around, change won't happen, and it needs to happen fast to turn around this powerful and self-destructive wave for our children's sake, for their future to be better and happier, for them to have a mentally and physically healthier life. Now, there are a number of things that can influence how children see themselves, but the bottom line is that parents can play a critical role in helping children develop a positive body image. One interesting comment about the stats I'm about to share is that many, although not all, come from other first world countries. Why? Because Americans have chosen to ignore the seriousness of this issue and therefore have spent much less time studying this problem. Here are some of the numbers: 28%, 83%, 31%, 50%, 70%, 958%. I have a feeling that you're trying to figure out what that number could possibly be, right? Then there's 79%, 50%, 80%, 31%. So what do all of these numbers have in common? The answer is they indicate just how serious this body image problem is. Now, before we get into the numbers, I want to be clear and highlight that not every study has the same exact percentages, but I feel comfortable stating that the percentages are very close across studies and across countries where the research has taken place, and some of this data comes straight from the CDC. Now, I started with the numbers 23% and 83%. Because these two numbers tell such a powerful story and put this subject in perspective. In 1973, about 23% of adults expressed they were dissatisfied with their body image. By 2018, that number had skyrocketed to 83%. And if most adult women are dissatisfied with their body image, you can guarantee this is going to have an impact on their daughters. What about the number 31%? One study showed that 31% of children in daycare ages 3 to 5 state that they think they are fat. Now, is that insane or what? And about 50% of kids ages 8 to 15 are trying various ways to lose weight, with almost 70% wishing they were thinner. When you hear a number like 958%, that's got to get your attention, right? Any guesses what that is? That's the percentage increase in cosmetic procedures from 1997 to 2018. Now, a majority of these have been procedures involving the face and the neck to look younger. followed by procedures like breast augmentation and liposuction. And at any point in time, 40% of women are considering cosmetic surgery. Now, just how important are looks relative to other things in a girl's life? Well, one survey of 11 to 16-year-olds found that 79% said how they look is very important to them. And you'll find that body image is a very substantial concern with 16 to 25-year-olds. In fact, it's one of their top 3 worries. It ranks right up there with worrying about doing well in school and getting good grades, and then after school, being able to find a job. 50% of 13-year-old American girls reporting being unhappy with their body. And it grows to 80% by the time they reach 17 years of age. The research also shows that as many as 31% of young people actually feel ashamed or disgusted with their bodies. Now, I could throw more astounding numbers out at you, but you get the picture. And it's a sad and shocking picture. Now, there are, of course, various things that impact body image. This includes heredity, parents, peers, TV and movies, magazines, advertisements, and, of course, good old social media. Social media is, to nobody's surprise, one of the main causes of body image issues. In particular, sites like Instagram and other sites where people post a lot of pictures. And there are TV shows like Keeping Up with the Kardashians, which in and of itself makes it sound like that's what you need to do. You need to keep up with the Kardashians. And they've had so much plastic surgery that they look nothing like themselves from 10 years ago. Now, exposure to these images has been shown to clearly facilitate the valuing of these ideal and unrealistic looks and body types. And the more exposure, the more kids internalize these images, the more it leads to negative feelings about appearance, which then in turn predicts unhealthy eating behaviors and excessive worry about how they look. But there is no greater influence overall when it comes to body image than parents. Yes, you. So can you believe this? Of all the topics in this world that one could mention or discuss, do you know that weight is one of the most common issues parents, in particular moms, mention in front of their children? Now, do I have to explain the impact of that? When it comes to messaging about body image, what I found to be so terribly sad is how little parents spoke positively about body image, or when being positive, they would overuse it. And I'll explain more on that now. Parents have to realize 2 important things about body image. It's not only negative talk about it that has a negative impact on our children, it's also too much of a focus on it, even if it's positive talk. Because too much focus on positive talk can also have a negative impact. I'll share one important thing for parents that they can start doing right now. And I've got more key action steps towards the end of my podcast. What they could do now is minimize comments about body image in front of their kids. And later I'll explain how to talk about the subject with your children. But for now, I'm referring to losing the frequency of certain comments you use to describe yourself, your children, and others, because they cut like a knife, sometimes literally. So please, 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 stop using the words weight, fat, large, heavy, thick, big, and the like about yourself or any other person in front of your children. Additionally, Watch your overuse of the words like cute, pretty, attractive, thin, and the like. Why? Because even though they sound positive, it puts an overemphasis on their importance. Is it okay to say every once in a while? Sure. But let's be careful about using those terms too often. And it is so ingrained in our society that when we see a baby or a puppy, what is the first thing we feel compelled to say? Oh, she is so cute, so adorable. Or, what a beautiful baby. See, it starts from the moment a child is born. Even though, let's face it, most babies, ironically, don't really look that cute. They generally have mushed up faces and misshapen heads. Think of how much conversation there is or comments to postings after a baby is born that include how attractive the baby is. It's quite idiotic when you think about how much emphasis we put on looks when there's nothing more superficial, more insignificant than a baby's appearance. And yet we use these terms even when they're not even truthful. Now let's go one step further. A person shows you a picture of their family or just their kids or posts such pictures, and what do we all say? How cute, how adorable, how pretty, how handsome. There is too much emphasis on appearance, even when it seems harmless or complimentary. So, Bruce, what do we do about what you just shared about the babies and the kids? And you're not going to like my answer, and it's not going to be easy. The answer is four simple but incredibly powerful letters, STOP. Stop using those words even when you see a newborn baby. You have the power to help change the tide, to stop this incredibly bad habit inflicted in so many of us. Now, I'll even let you cheat a bit and say the word nice. That's a nice picture. When you see kids or babies, ask questions instead of commenting on their looks. And also avoid comments and questions about height and weight, like how tall is the baby? How much does the baby weigh? Why is that relevant? It's such a bad habit. When you see pictures of kids, you can ask what age, what year in school, what do they like to do? For babies, ask about their health. Are they taking to mom or the bottle? Are they being fussy or not? And then turn the topics to mom and how she is doing. Now let's switch gears and talk about peers. As kids get older, their peers begin to impact body image. Now, many young people will tell you, in fact, there's a study that found 40% of young people will tell you that their peers have said things that have caused them to worry or be ashamed in relation to their body image. But let's hold off on that for a minute and what we can do about it. When it comes to body image, it's mainly about negative comparisons. I don't look like that person. And that is what I should look like. And if I don't, then I must do something about it. I must look like that model. That 1/10 of 1/10 of 1/10 of a percent of what people really look like. I must look like that girl in class who looks so pretty. But let's face it, when it comes to a lot of pictures that are out there, we know they've been touched up, they've been airbrushed, they've been made up, they've been lightened up, people have been tucked in, and the like, all in ways to make them look ideal. But to even see these people up close in real life, you will notice there are many imperfections. And they will even share how they're not even happy with their looks, their appearance, their weight. So what is a parent to do? And the powerful truth is that thankfully there is plenty. And studies show parents have the ability to lessen the influence of peers and what they have to say about body image. And parents can influence the all-powerful traditional media and social media. Now, put your helmets on, strap on your seatbelts, and get ready for the actions. Some are simple, others are going to take hard work because we have these ingrained habits, and these habits are hard to change. But isn't it worth it, given the torment a person can go through their entire life, obsessing about body image and how some people will make themselves sick, sometimes deathly ill, by not eating or overeating, another epidemic, and others who will take their own life rather than accept how they think they look. The hardest but one of the most powerful solutions is to limit the time your kids spend taking selfies and posting them on various social media sites, whether it's Facebook, but in particular, Instagram, which is focused on posting pictures and then people comment on them. And there are kids who post almost as often as they breathe. The number of selfies taken and posted by the younger generation is estimated to be over 25,000 in a lifetime. Now, based on my last podcast on parenting, who is in charge? Who makes the rules? You do. You have a say-so in what your children do or don't do, what they watch or don't watch, what they post or don't post, or how often they post, and the sites they use. And if they don't follow the rules, you know how to implement consequences. But there is so much more to impacting body image by monitoring the use of social media that is also in your control. It's a fact that the relationship between social media use and body dissatisfaction was significantly weaker for those adolescents that had a more positive maternal relationship. And another found that parents who spend less time posting on social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, and making body comparisons about these postings in front of their children help minimize the negative impact of social media. We think of peers teasing other children about their weight, their looks, but over half of the teasing and biting comments comes from family members. And these experiences were related to higher levels of body satisfaction and unhealthy eating behavior. So you know the bottom line. There is no greater role model in your child's life than you when it comes to body image. Now's the time to change the conversation. The way you talk about your body will influence your child. The meals you serve, the meals you eat, how you talk about food, whether you exercise, and the importance you place on how you and others look, and the frequency that you talk about it will significantly influence your child. So here are the key do and don'ts that I have categorized. And the first one has to do with food and exercise talk. Don't ever talk about or use the word diet or dieting or the word fat or any version of that word. Do talk about eating healthy, eating well, eating foods that are good for you, eating balanced meals. You can also talk about portions and eating less of certain types of food and more of other types of foods. Don't go on fad or extreme diets. Number one, they don't work, they don't last. Instead, it's all about eating healthier and eating fewer calories. So we don't want to be extreme when it comes to food and fads. Don't talk about exercising to lose weight. Do talk about exercising to be healthier. How it's good for your insides, your heart rate, your blood pressure, how it prevents illness like heart disease and diabetes, and how it'll reduce your stress and it'll prolong your life. Exercise in moderation. Again, you're the role model here. Watch extremes. Don't Use the clean plate measure of food and don't serve large portions. Instead, teach your children to pause and determine when they are full or satisfied. Don't make every food decision for your child. Don't micromanage everything they eat. Give your child some say in what they eat, even if it always isn't something great. So let your child help choose some foods at the grocery store, but at the same time, try to educate them. Educate them on good food choices. Tell them that eating a variety of foods is important for growing into being strong and being healthy, and that everything they eat isn't going to taste great. Teach them about balance and moderation. And do require them to eat some healthy foods. Serve them what you serve yourself, whether they like it or fuss about it or not. If they want some snacks, then yeah, you need to eat some of these other healthy foods. And I know the next item is one that people are going to balk at and say, oh, easier said than done. Put yourself in my shoes. But you know what? We talked about the importance of body image, the impact that it has, the negative impact that it has. So, I know how busy you are, but we've got to find a way to minimize fast food and frozen foods, which are loaded with preservatives, salt, sugars, a number of things that are just not healthy. Moderation. It's okay to do it once in a while, but we have to find some time to make some meals. Have the kids help make some meals. I can tell you that when I was about 5 years old, my grandmother started to teach me how to cook. And I have to tell you, it doesn't necessarily take that long, and it's not that complicated to cook a decent meal. Now, the do's and don'ts regarding positive talk and recognition. When talking about yourself and others in a positive manner and what makes you happy, mention things that have nothing to do with looks or appearance. Talk about what it means to be a good person, what makes people happy and fulfilled. What are the things in your life that you like the most, that make you feel good? And share those with your kids. Recognize your kids for anything but diet talk or appearance. In particular, inner attributes and good behaviors. That's what you should be rewarding them for. Now, here are the key do's and don'ts regarding openly talking about looks and appearance. And yes, starting as young as the age of 5. Talk to your kids early and keep talking to them whenever the subject comes up. And if it doesn't come up, then you bring it up. If they question their looks based on comments they heard or something they saw on television or YouTube, in a magazine or Instagram or from a peer, talk about it and ask them how they feel about it and why. And put it in perspective and challenge their assumptions and talk about how many people really look like that. And if that really makes them any happier, and how made up that person is, and how they modify the pictures, and what most people look like, and what attributes are most important, and why. And role model, role model, role model. Watch how much time you spent in front of the mirror, or fuss with your looks, or talk about them. There's no greater influence than how you act around your children. Well, I've preached a lot, so I'm going to stop. I know I've given you a number of suggestions, and look, I'm a realist and don't expect you to follow everything I've shared, or maybe believe everything I've shared, or buy into everything I've shared. But even if you apply some of what I've recommended, you can make a difference in your child's life and how they feel about themselves. You have the power to be a big influence here. But it starts with you and your habits. Remember, your kids are watching what you do, listening to what you have to say, and modeling your actions. And at the end of the day, we've learned that almost no girl or woman is as pleased with their looks as they want to be. even the most popular models or YouTube or movie stars. So in a sense, it's normal not to feel that you look as good as you want. So when you talk to your kids, put this subject in perspective. Because when it comes to this topic, if it is one thing your children are lacking, it's perspective. I wish you luck. So thanks for stopping by, and thanks for listening, if you're still awake. I hope you were entertained, maybe learned something new, smiled a time or two, and here's to having at least an okay day. And if you don't, that you have what it takes to make it through. This is Bruce from Bruce World, the way I see things, and I hope you'll join me for my next episode.